Luther's theological calling card, justification by faith alone, came out of his reading of the Apostle Paul's letter to the Romans. But before you can really appreciate what happened to Luther when he discovered that doctrine, you need to understand some of the other foundational theological definitions Luther had as well. In the preface to his lecture on the Romans, Luther wrote the following. To begin with, we must have knowledge of its language and know what St. Paul means by the words law, sin, grace, faith, righteousness, flesh, spirit, and the like. Otherwise, no reading of the book has any value. In this episode, we're going to take up the definition of the word law. To begin with, it's important to see the distinction Luther makes between human laws and God's law, and how they function in our lives. Luther wrote,
"The little word law you must hear not taken human fashion as a teaching about what works are to be done or not done. That is the way with human laws. A law is fulfilled by works, even though there is no heart in the doing of them. But God judges according to what is in the depths of the heart. For this reason, his law too makes its demands on the inmost heart. It cannot be satisfied with works, but rather punishes as hypocrisy and lies the works not done from the bottom of the heart."
Let's look carefully at what Luther just said. God's law is not fulfilled because you did or did not act. Rather, the fulfillment of the law is dependent upon what's in your heart. Think of it this way. If God were to use a radar gun to determine whether or not you're breaking the speed limit law, the radar gun would not be aimed at your car to determine its speed. Rather, God would aim his radar gun at your heart to determine whether or not you want to follow the speed limit. And what is God's verdict? Listen to the rest of Luther's explanation.
You've got to press the button to have me read. "Hence all men are called liars" in Psalm 116, because no one keeps or can keep God's law from the bottom of the heart. For everyone finds in himself displeasure in what is good and pleasure in what is bad.
Let's restate that. Luther is saying something like this. The speed limit is a good thing, but if you don't like going slow in a construction zone, then according to Luther, God would pull you over and give you a ticket because your heart does not like the speed limit, regardless of how fast or slow your car is going. Luther explains it this way.
If now there is no willing pleasure in the good, then the inmost heart is not set on the law of God. Then too there is surely sin, and God's wrath is deserved, even though outwardly there seem to be many good deeds and an honorable life. For even though you keep the law outwardly with works from fear of punishment or love of reward, nevertheless you do all this unwillingly, without a pleasure and love for the law, but with reluctance and under compulsion. For if the law were not there, you would prefer to act otherwise. The conclusion is that from the bottom of your heart, you hate the law.
Let's go back to the speed limit analogy. Some people follow the speed limit because they get a reward from their insurance company if they keep a clean driving record. Others follow it because they don't want a speeding ticket and they don't want to pay a fine to the police. At the root of both of these reasons for following the law is a selfish motivation. So, God recognizes you aren't following the law because God said so, but you're following the law to benefit yourself. Luther continues.
What point is there then in your teaching others not to steal if you yourself are a thief at heart, and would gladly be one outwardly if you dared? Though, to be sure, the outward work does not lag far behind among such hypocrites. So you teach others, but not yourself. Nor do you yourself know what you are teaching. You have never yet understood the law correctly. Moreover, the law increases sin, As St. Paul says in chapter 5, verse 20, because the more the law demands of men what they cannot do, the more they hate the law.
That last line is key to understanding God's law and commands. No one ever follows the law from their heart. Why not? Luther recognizes that everyone wants to determine their own fate, actions, and destiny. That is to say, to be in control of your life is to be your own God, which is breaking the first commandment. So, when you see that the speed limit sign and you're frustrated with having to slow down, you are not loving the one who made the law, and this is what increases your sin. How do I get you off of my shirt?
Listen, I don't want to be here either. Ask Sarah. She's the one who knows how this thing works.
Sarah, how do I get Luther off of my shirt? I can't get this done.